Crack open that bottle of wine. Grab your favorite glass. Pour a couple of fingers of scotch in it. Get that stick. Light it. And blow. It's time to hang. With Steel Sharpens Steel. After dark. Good evening, Sharpies. You know we love the After Dark up in here. This week's episode brought to you by the Y chromosome because it's me and Chuck back where it all began. And we are here for you, our Sharpies. We love you. Thank you for people who have already dropped comments in the chat. Anthony Turner, Cecily Jackson. We are here, and if you can imagine, we have a bunch of stuff to talk about because a lot of stuff has been happening, not the least of which is yet another book about the Trump administration. Actually, two books. One from outsiders, Perro, and one from an insider who got paid to do her job for months and never actually did her job. That's Stephanie Grisham. But apparently what Stephanie was doing was gathering lots of juicy tidbits and gossip so that she could put out a book. So I'm not completely mad at her. I'm Tom Cunningham.
And I'm Chuck Hobbs.
So if you all have been doing stuff, please drop it in the chat so we can talk about that. The first thing, though, that I want to do is say I'm glad to be back. We have been on and off for a while. Kudos and a big shout out to Joy for handling this thing solo a couple of weeks ago. And then last week, it was a trio of Steelers. And now it is a duo. So we just hopscotching all around these various permutations. If you are interested ever in being a guest Sharpie on Steel Sharpens Steel, please DM any of us, Tom, Joy, Chuck, Sharon, let us know. And we'll be happy to have you on speed text to get you up into this thing. What it do, Charles? What's going on in your part of the world?
Hey man, same old, same old. I have, missed the format, but I also understand that, when we look back to, it's been about a little over a year since we went to the full, four of us type format. You and I started in August of last year during the conventions, bringing commentary every night for the Democratic and Republican convention. Then we got joined by our sisters, Sharon and Joy, and it's been a wonder. But what was a trip is that at some point in time, life also happens. And so bringing it every week, like we brought it every week, you got to rejuvenate sometimes. And, you and I were talking before we went on air about, all of us have, work responsibilities also. And this is a lot of fun for us. It's not really work. When you love what you're doing, it's not work at all. But it still can be kind of draining after long weeks of this and that and what have you. So we wish for traveling grace for Joy and for Sharon, who are off doing what they do. And we'll hold it down this evening. And that's pretty much it. I mean, to tell you the truth, I look forward to diving right into some of the content tonight. And so take it away, Tom. It's on you, bro.
So let's just start. Bob Woodward, no longer with Bernstein, has dropped yet another one. And it's incredible to me that Trump got sucked in and taken in so much, because Woodward was never like a particular fan, joined this time in his writing duties by Mr. Costa. And the book is called Peril. And as one can well imagine, we all knew, those of us who were not Trump fans, there were plenty of Trump fans across the country, but those of us who were not Trump fans clearly knew the boy wasn't right. As some folks would say, the boy wasn't right. So it wasn't surprising at all to us to find out that there was lots of stuff going on. And of course, one of the things that came out in the book was General Mark Milley's, chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, his revelation that he was so concerned about how things could go in the waning days of the Trump presidency that he actually put a memo out saying a couple of things, not the least of which is, yeah, so if he decides to try to launch the nuclear weapons, why don't y'all just give me a text real quick? And we because that's not about to happen.
No.
And then also that he did some back channel stuff to China to say, look, we got this. Don't worry about it. It's going to be over in 2 weeks. And just understand it's all good. Which I was listening to Michael Cohen, in his podcast Mea Culpa, and he had a guest on, and the guest made the point that, yes, well, Mark Milley is not in the chain of command. Mm-hmm. He's a military officer. Chain of command is with civilians, with the president. Mm-hmm. But you have to look at it in the context of what was going on. Would Barack Obama have ever been censored in this way? No, because Barack Obama saw who won and immediately started transitioning. Trump, not so much. So what do you think? What was the biggest thing that you saw, Chuck, about peril that kind of set your teeth on edge? Or was it all just basically like, yeah, we knew this?
No doubt about it, Tom. It definitely was. We knew this. Like, if folks go back to our archives and listen to us last year, like we say, when we first got started, you and I, on a night to night, week to week type basis, we were whacking Donald Trump with all of our rhetorical fury because, again, unprecedented. We have never seen anything like this. Prayerfully, we will never see anything like this again. And when I say like this, I'm talking about the amateur hour type of concept here. Years ago when we were younger and Jesse Ventura won the gubernatorial race up in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
I think to myself sometimes back then, because that was a comedy of errors in many ways. I mean, he tried to attack it as seriously as he could, based upon, I'm talking about Mr. Ventura, based upon his intellectual level or whatever. But a lot of times it was a comedy of errors. And I used to think sometimes, like, wow, I wonder what it would look like if a former wrestling type, not too super highly educated, interested in, the things that are crucial for the position type of guy or woman wins. And we lived it for 4 years. So I'm not shocked by it. What I want to say, though, about the General Milley thing is, you and I both are military brats. Maybe some of our Sharpies and viewers don't know that. Your dad was a career Air Force officer. My dad was a career Army officer. So while neither of us served in the military, we grew up around it. And so we get the concept of chain of command and all that entails. So I'm not going to lie. My first instinct when I was reading the headlines as to what the book was going to share that General Milley did, it struck me as kind of odd, right? Because, and when I say odd, I understood what he was doing, but it just didn't sit well with me because I'm like, wow. I kept thinking to myself, Tom, like, wow, I wonder how Pop would have handled that. Like, had he been in that position, and I'm sure you thought it too about the elder brother Cunningham, like, how would he have handled that? So I had some concerns. But what was funny is the historian part of me kicked in, and I was actually sharing this with my mom, and I think I might have shared it in one of my blogs. But okay, so toward the end of World War II, when Adolf Hitler in April of 45 was holed up in the bunker under the Reichstag in Berlin, hell was breaking down around him. The Russians were right there in the city. The Americans were not far off. It was all lost, right? And yet down there in that bunker, Adolf Hitler was still giving commands to his high command in regards to, hey, we're going to send this division against these Russians, and then we're going to move that division against the Americans and the British. And those divisions no longer existed. So what was happening for the last 2 weeks of his life, the high command was just feeding him a bunch of bull down there in the chancellery, in the underground chancellery. Like, yes, sir, we moved against the Russians today and we're exacting heavy losses. None of that was true, but it was like, hey, we will placate the fool until this all settles however it's going to settle. And that's what I kept thinking about in regards to Trump. I think once mid-December came and Mitch McConnell conceded and was like, okay, yeah, we got a President Biden, and Bill Barr and all of the folks recognize, okay, this is over. It's a wrap. There's not going to be any overturning of anything. I think that at that point in time, you know, I think the general millennials were concerned. You have to be because of the second book we're about to talk about. But still, I kind of felt like, I don't know if I had been in his shoes, I would have contacted my Chinese counterpart. But I definitely would have been feeding him a bill of goods, like, yes, sir, Mr. President. Yes, sir, Mr. President. And then telling my underlings what he did, which is if he sends for the launch codes, you holler at me first, because I'm not going to allow that. Even if it means a court martial and I have to go to Leavenworth, I'm not going to let him get us into a war.
Well, part of I think the important context is that, and we're kind of getting into some of the stuff that Stephanie was talking about in her book, which is a much longer title. Especially, and ironic given that she actually never did stand behind a podium to give a press briefing,
like ever.
Yeah. So I guess the thing to me is that we act as though the president unilaterally can just do whatever he wants as it pertains to nuclear launch, and absent a real, legitimate, informed threat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, technically he has the capacity, but when you're on your way out, especially post-coup attempt, ain't nobody got time for all that.
Not here.
It's just not happening, bro. We're just not indulging you, and you need to go sit down somewhere, and stop. And to your point about how Mitch McConnell settled down, let's not be confused. There's still millions and millions of people. Rudy Giuliani, one of them, frankly. Rudy Giuliani has become completely unhinged and divorced from reality because he's still looking at things like these audits. The Texas governor just agreed to an audit.
Yeah.
And they are currently counting ballots in Harris County. They say the biggest GOP county and the biggest Democratic counties. But it's like, we are in October now. We are literally almost a year from Election Day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The numbers were certified in every state.
Yeah.
The votes were counted in every state. The electors cast their ballots for every state. Biden was inaugurated on January 21st. Who is spending money? What state is spending valuable money on doing an audit now? Because what is it that you expect is going to be done? There is not anything that's going to be done. Not for nothing, Biden didn't even win Texas.
Right. So what? Right.
I mean, it'd be one thing, like you already did it in Georgia, you already did it in Arizona. I get, I get conceptually those two, because if it had been shown that, Trump actually won by 2 votes in this audit, I mean, automatically it would have triggered another audit just because of the margin of victory, whatever. But if those 2 states flipped, I understand why Trump would have a point. But Trump won Texas. Now, I guess there's congressional districts, maybe some Democratic wins, something like that. The 8 Black sisters, whatever. I guess maybe that could be at the heart of it. But at the end of the day, why are you counting ballots in states you won? You lost votes in Arizona when you did that.
Right.
So you want to lose votes?
Mm-hmm. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And so we're going from the threat of a mushroom cloud to an incomprehensibly much smaller mushroom head, according to Stephanie Grisham and Stormy Daniels. So this is how this man thinks. He's so obsessed with his non-existent genitals that he had to release a statement about Stephanie lying when Stephanie was really just repeating Stormy's testimony. Stephanie wasn't lying.
Right.
But he had to tell Stephanie in real time, no, my genitals are fine. My mechanism, my equipment, some people call it massive. Who?
Right. And if they do, they're just blowing up your ego because they know that you're insecure as all get out, right? I mean, if you've got the right amount of money, you can get somebody
massive
to tell you. Yeah, you know how sometimes you see these memes where people will put the side-by-side pictures of them and Boris Cujo or Morris Chestnut and say, Everybody tells me I look like no, you don't. So stop that. Right? Stop. Right.
Ain't nobody calling baby Trump massive, bro.
Right.
It's a Cheeto, bro. It's a
Mhm.
Cheeto.
Actually, only thing that most of those women have ever been interested in is the size of his bank account. And
Well,
that's the reason why he's always been able to have women and models and everything else, because it's not looks or virility or any of the rest of that. It's because he's paid or paid comparatively speaking to the average guy.
To the average dude.
Yeah.
And he's got a TV show and and all these sorts of things. And now that the veneer has been pulled off of the facade, it remains to be seen. I mean, right now he's still riding high, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned several podcasts ago that the Trump Presidential Library is going to be an iPhone in a glass case. Just
you got hope, man.
Just tweets, like a phone book of tweets and an iPhone in the lobby of the Trump Plaza. It's like, here it is.
Transcript.
It's the best presidential library in the world. Everything you need to know, it's right here, direct to you.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Virtual presidential library. Right.
Why not? And he'd still probably raise $40 million for it. It's a solid gold iPhone encrusted with diamonds from my tenant Tiffany's. So it's just absolutely ridiculous. And of course, a lot of people are saying that the Stephanie Grisham book really isn't good. It's not high literature. I mean, it's not Peril, but why not? Real Housewives isn't television, but I still watch it.
Absolutely.
I got to see what's going on in Lake Bailey and everybody else.
And you know what, Tom? As I started seeing some of the reviews this week of the Grisham book, it just reminded me of, like, no matter what things have gone wrong, and there have been a lot of successes in the Biden administration. There have been some things that I think they wish they could get a mulligan on and do over, like the withdrawal from Afghanistan. But more than anything else, if nothing else, the ability for us to wake up every day and not have to deal with what got tweeted overnight. I'm so grateful for that, because they're already hitting Grisham. I mean, as he always does everybody. She's stupid. She's not that bright. She was a loser. She's losing bigly. And because she was losing bigly and she lost her relationship, she's a total loser and everything. I mean, that's what it is. You're a loser when you're telling whatever it is he doesn't want to hear, and you're a winner when you're loyal and so I don't miss any of that. And so yeah, I'm very hopeful that now, strangely enough, Tom, and we can go here before we leave tonight. I actually, it wouldn't hurt me to see him run again in 2024. I know he fancies himself as the second coming of Grover Cleveland. You and I, Brainbow, get that, the non-consecutive terms.
First and only non-consecutive.
First and only. But, Trump's easy prey. There are a lot, he really is. I mean, he obviously is going to appeal to hardcore Republicans, but there are a lot of people who are still sickened by the past 4 years and definitely January 6th. And he'll never be able to bring those folks back. I mean, it's
Michael Cohen, again, I like Michael Cohen because he is the one guy from the Trump fold who really actually does have the scoop and is violently going after Trump like every single week. These other people, they put a book out, they're not doing big press tours. Michael Cohen every week, a couple of times a week, is dropping bombs on the podcast and swearing. And I tend to believe Michael in this, that Trump will hold off on making a definitive announcement. Trump will raise money as though he's going to run, but he will not run because he can't lose.
Gotcha.
The idea of losing the presidency again. I mean, right now he's still saying I won my second term, though he's not serving it. But the idea of actual losing again, and of course, Biden's probably not running. I don't know who is, and I don't think Kamala Harris, as much as I love her, I don't think Kamala Harris is the odds-on favorite. There's going to be some jockeying for that, because she ended up doing what Peter Florrick was trying to do in the last season of The Good Wife, running for president to run for vice president.
Right.
And so she got vice president, but I don't see her making her mark as the shadow president as I kind of expected that she would. Joe Biden is really out front. The infrastructure thing, you know, he's doing his thing. He's making his moves. He's trying to herd the cats. And you don't see a lot of Vice President Harris. And so I don't know that, I don't expect that the Democratic Party is going to and clear the decks for her in the way that they cleared the decks for Hillary, and because they didn't even clear the decks for Barack Obama. Let's be clear, it was true. Barack and Hillary all the way to the end. And so I don't think Kamala Harris is going to walk in with a retired Joe, or, you know, God forbid, some other circumstance with Joe Biden, unless she actually inherits the office and has the veneer of incumbency. I just don't see. And even if she does have incumbency,
still gonna be rough.
I just don't see. And frankly, as tough as she is, and as articulate and capable as she is, when you get into the whole misogyny thing again, that's not a fight I want to see Kamala Harris in. Kamala Harris versus Trump, I don't want to see that.
Especially when it's some of our own brothers who are leading the lynch party for her as a woman, and as a woman who is married to a non-black man. It's right. We're still pissed. You and I are still pissed off with some of the fights we've had to fight.
Oh my God!
Honor amongst the hotepery of America and what have you, who just wanted to just make all kind of negative comments about Sister Harris. So yeah, we've got some time to figure that out. You know, I keep having this sneaking suspicion that we haven't heard the last of Beto O'Rourke out of Texas.
Well, did you get the fundraising email that he's running for governor?
I did. So I'm like,
I mean, that actually, that makes sense. I get it. I was kind of surprised that he didn't perform better. In the Senate race. But he still has a national profile. I wish he were a little bit less sleepy in his presentation, but you know, it's not like Greg Abbott's some sort of charismatic super genius either.
True. Right.
And Ron DeSantis is precipitously sliding. So, you know, I know that he thought he was going to be able to Jimmy Jangle his way into that role. And Ted Cruz, also known as Wolverine stunt double these days, is what are you doing, Ted? Those mutton chops are not the move. They haven't been in vogue since the 1800s, bro.
I was thinking at least 1855. That's what I was thinking, right?
And them some legit mutton chops, man.
They really are. And he also gives out that Eddie Munster.
With the dude, it's chunky Eddie Munster.
Yeah, he's a creep.
He got that COVID 30, like crack it off like a mug.
No doubt about it. And again, like I said, at the end of the day, anybody that lets somebody talk bad about your father and your wife, and you don't do nothing about it. I mean, there's nothing Ted Cruz can ever say to me. And then, like you say, and took off while his constituents were freezing in Texas.
I mean,
to go to Mexico. He's trash. So yeah.
He puts the coon in Cancun.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So we talked about Mark Milley vis-a-vis Peril. We talked about Stephanie Grisham and her extremely long titled book. But let's get into Mark Milley and his actual testimony in front of the Congress. Now, I'll tell you right now, was it Josh Hawley that thought he was going to score some points?
Yeah. Typical smarmy.
I mean,
yeah. He puts the smarm in the smarmy, no doubt about it. But yeah, there's, you know, it always trips me out when you start to hear these hearings, so to speak, and you hear the testimony. And I take people, once they take that oath and swear to what they're going to swear to at their word. You know, the major takeaway that I had this past week of all things was that I still have some concerns about how the ending jumped off in Afghanistan.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where in my writings, I have placed the blame where it belongs, which is with both of our last two presidents. And
Right.
what I mean by that is, clearly the generals are stating that, including General Lloyd Austin, the brother, Secretary of Defense, now,
Mhm.
testifying that, listen, we tried to caution Mr. Trump and we tried to caution Mr. Biden that we need to leave a group there to make sure that our American civilian contractors and what have you are able to be extracted safely, as well as our Afghan allies who were serving in those same capacities. I believe those men. I take them at their word. I also believe that there were different processes in place. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Democrat. I actually do believe this. I believe that Trump heard it, but, as typical during his 4 years, he did it his way. He always liked to play Frank Sinatra's My Way. I don't think he wanted to hear any advice because he was constantly saying how much he knows more than the generals and I'm smarter than the
Oh.
generals and I'll do this and that. So that's where it went awry with him. I think that
Yeah.
with Mr. Biden, that it wasn't an attempt to do something wrong. I think it was an overly optimistic summation of what was going on. And so when you hear, and I can't remember whether it was Milley who made the comment, it's going to come back to me in a minute, but one of the generals commented this week that they knew that the Taliban eventually would take over or had the
Right.
capacity to, but they thought that it would be at least November, December before. They didn't think it was going to be 10 or 11 days
Right.
our last troops leaving and then everything getting overrun. So I believe that President Biden was dealing with, different intel. Like on the one hand, if you think back to when he gave a speech, I want to say in early July, and the president was like, "This won't be Dunkirk. This won't be the fall of Saigon. This will be an orderly." And then 5 weeks later, that tweet, like you say, and those comments didn't age so well because it was the fall of Saigon all over again, and almost literally with people falling off of the planes.
Planes.
So I
Yeah.
think it was just a "oops, my bad" type of situation, but not out of any ill will intent type of whatever. And I think what's important here, the teachable moment, whether it's the Democratic Biden or the Republican Trump, is that whoever is the chief executive has to have a level of humility. We talk about that when we're pledging fraternities, sororities, and what have you, how important humility is. You have to have enough humility to be able to even say, you know what, I screwed that up. Like, looking back in hindsight, we should have left 2,500 people there or 5,000. But you know what? We got as many back as we could, as quickly as we could, and we're not going to get out of there. And that's the way you do it. You don't double down. You don't get ornery. You don't tell people, I wouldn't change a thing. Sure, you would change a thing because that was a bad look, even among our allies. So with that in mind, it has been fascinating to hear these generals who have put in so many years in what they're doing and how you've got two septuagenarian leaders who are kind of like, I'm going to do this how I want to do it. And that's interesting, too. It leads to a whole other set of concerns in regards to where there is a similarity there in regards to what the joke grumpy old men, so to speak, which is I'm going to do it and to hell with what y'all think. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it just strikes me that it really was kind of the ultimate catch-22. There was no winning the situation, as others have said, and as we even talked about on our own show. This is not a situation where the Taliban was going to do very much different. It really was a matter of timing.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have thought you might have gotten a reprieve until November, but functionally, what is the difference of 2 months? They are in charge, and the reason they are in charge deals with primarily sociological things that the United States was not ever going to be able to change anyway. We had a video a couple of weeks ago from the brother who was offering some really, really solid insights, which is these dudes want their sons to be married. They want to be done. They're tired. They are still in a country that has all of the problems it ever had. But now the Taliban isn't shooting soldiers because the soldiers stepped down. So Yeah, okay. You didn't have much in the way of rights. Women didn't have much in the way of rights, or don't have much in the way of rights under the Taliban, but they were hiding and sheltering from bullet fire a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
So can you go to the stove? Can you get some stuff for your kids? Yeah, you can't drive a car in public, and that is not great. But that country made that decision for itself and its people. And if a country decides they're going to let some quasi-religious, I'm not even going to give them the honorific of calling them legitimate religious, but if they are going to take and allow some dudes with AKs to run around and do whatever the hell they want, then that's on them. It's not something that we are going to be able to fix. And as awful as I feel horrible about the people who helped us, that the Taliban was particularly targeting in those last days. And we could have and should have been able to do more before the deadline. After the deadline, that was going to be extra tricky. But before the deadline, we should have been able to do more. We should have known. We should have had eyes on those people. We should have said, here, come in this Jeep. We're going to drive you to, Camp X-Ray, and you just hold tight. You just stay here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry about your grandmama. I got you and your wife and your kids. Come, let's go. We should have been able to do that.
I agree.
It's horrible that we didn't. But in the overall scheme of things, this country has been thwarting the will of the world's two superpowers, not counting China, because China has better sense, has been thwarting the will of the world's superpowers for 40 straight years.
Mm-hmm. Period.
So another month, 40 years in a month. I mean, I just don't know where you go with that. And so, yes, Biden inherited the mess, and there's some fallout from the mess, but 700,000 Americans died because of Trump's mess.
Yeah.
So on balance, most Americans, right or wrong, they're looking at some dead Afghan nationals versus, our military incursion and, their loved ones deployed overseas indefinitely. No American wants to have their son or daughter come back with a limb blown off from an IED or anything like that. They want it out. We wanted out. The Afghans wanted us out, or the ruling party of the Afghans wanted us out. And Trump gave a date certain. And when you give a date certain, you're going to have to live with the consequences of the date certain. And to, Monday morning quarterback it and say, oh, I would have done something different. Okay, well, instead of inciting a riot, maybe you should have been getting your people out.
Yeah,
instead of pretending like it was a false election, instead of spending months, all of November, all of December, and really all of January, and because it's October and you still haven't shut up about it, those 3 months you could have been getting those Afghans out. That's what you could have been doing. Because even if you had won, you knew you had set that date certain, so you should have been doing that. But you were expending all of your juice and all of your energy on fighting a hopeless battle. So I'm gonna throw that one on you, Trump. I'm going to throw it right back on you, because that should have been another almost 3 months, all of November, all of December, until January 20th. That should have been your time to withdraw our troops and our allies from that country, instead of turning it into something that just, where Biden, was faced with shitting the bed, which, I mean, there's no two ways around it. At least he owned it.
I agree.
He didn't try to pass it off on anybody. Another thing that he has not been able to successfully get across the finish line is this infrastructure bill. And Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, girl, I don't know what you're doing.
They annoy me.
Joe Manchin is still Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
He really hasn't changed that much. But Sinema was elected as a Democrat for a reason in that state.
Absolutely.
And nobody is asking for this from you, Sinema.
And see, here's what confuses me, right? Like, what is the end game? I was reading an article the other day, and it got me to thinking, what is it? Is power so important to members of Congress? Is the 200-something thousand or close to 200K that you make per year, the parking passes and the travel perks, are those so important that you can't sometimes just draw a line in the sand and say, even if I don't get reelected, this is the right thing to do at this moment in time. And I'm going to vote in a way that will reverberate 10, 15, 20 years down the line, even if it means that I'm back being private citizen Hobbs after the election. That question that I just asked is the problem that so many people in both parties have in Washington, D.C., in terms of, at the end of the day, we have a group of representatives, be it in the Senate or in Congress, who are more concerned about staying in power at times, not always. Every now and again, you'll see some altruism there and you'll see some, yeah, okay. But at the end of the day, it's, if this is the pulse and these are the ways that the people in my state or in my district are pushing on this, licking your finger, sticking it up to see where the wind is blowing. If that's the way that you're making your decisions, then that's selfish. And that's where I struggle, which is, where are the statesmen and the stateswomen who are like, you know what, this infrastructure bill, 40, 50 years from now, whatever roads and bridges and improvements that come out of this will still be, many of us will be long dead. And the impact of what's getting allocated right now, if it passes, will still be in effect. And that's my struggle with Sinema, and to an extent Manchin also. I mean, it's staying in power in West Virginia. We know West Virginia is a red state, and you're the last blue guy in the red state
who can get elected there, probably.
Yeah, who can get elected there. But can you do something else? Like, is this all that your life is, that you can't, like, I mean, hell, he could probably make 6-7 times that as a lobbyist if
for sure
gets kicked out of office. So I'm not understanding what the flex is, so to speak.
It's interesting that you say that. I was listening to a commentator and he made the point of America right now is coasting on the greatness of the things that they did in the past. We are still talking about the New Deal. We are still talking about the Tennessee Valley Authority. We are still talking about things that emerged from, damn near a century ago with Social Security and Medicare and all these things that were done in this country to make things livable for its citizens and all that. When was the last, I mean, you could look at Obamacare, I guess, as an expansion of healthcare, but certainly during the Trump administration, what is the signature thing that people are going to be talking about 30 years from now? That what First Step Act?
Right.
What is the thing? And to your point, the people in office right now, it seems the people in office right now aren't really interested in legislating. They aren't interested in running the country. They're interested in maintaining their own position, sitting, doing nothing, and living for the wins of, I got this judge in. Or maybe we're going to be able to do this or that and the third about abortion restrictions like they're doing in Texas right now. So there are things that they are getting done, but they're not getting legislation done.
Yeah.
Now, this infrastructure bill would be something, as you said, those roads and bridges that are repaired are going to outlive certainly Mitch McConnell. That Horcrux is blinking right now. He needs to change, get a new 9-volt up in that thing. It's like, jumpstart his ass. But the point is that these people are posturing just for the power. Ron DeSantis doesn't have enough common sense to run a Dollar General.
Right.
But he's running one of the largest, most populous, most profitable states in the country into the ground because he figured the ideology of the idiot would be enough for him to hold on until maybe he could take the next step. And you talked about Jesse Ventura earlier today, and it reminded me of Terry Crews' iconic portrayal of the president, who is basically a Jesse Ventura knockoff in Idiocracy. And what we have in terms of a guy who does nothing more than force his ego and his id into the atmosphere and just have it raining down. It's what plants crave. It's just it doesn't matter that the plants are dying from the Gatorade knockoff. It's what plants crave. And so that's where we are. We literally were flirting with the Idiocracy administration. Now we have Joe, who is bringing a sense of stability. Just the lack of tweets is like a breath of fresh air.
Indeed.
And, yet and still, despite trying to do all the best things, COVID is kind of rearing its head again. The red states are, whole families of unvaccinated are dying. I read an article where the entire family caught it because they were all unvaccinated. But the biggest devastation was that the children were in ICU and intubated and, giving truth to the lie that, oh, it's an old folks disease, or, oh, it's an obese disease, or, oh, it's an underlying conditions disease. It's not, the kids don't need to be vaccinated, blah, 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 blah. And you have even these NBA players who are taking a principled stance about not getting vaccinated because freedom and whatever. And it's like, okay, you also have freedom not to get that check. But go on ahead. When 90% of the NBA players are vaccinated, where are them side effects when they running you off the boards, bro?
Thank you, man.
Because them teams are still winning.
Yeah. What's like about that is when you look at the ones who played for somebody's college, even if it was for 1 year, right? If you went to college, you had to turn in that MMR and your shot and all of that type of crap. Every school I went to, you couldn't attend not nan class if you didn't have your shot records in before they let you in. I mean, even late in life in law school, like in my 20s, it's like I remember having to go to the University of Florida, like whatever, to like, hey, here are my medical records. And I'm like, wow, this stuff is still traveling with me, because I remember looking at it like, wow, this started back in 1970, whatever, up in Maryland, and now I'm here. Yeah, so I don't want to hear that. It just doesn't make any sense. And I keep challenging people, Tom, and I know you do too. I had one of those polls I like to do from time to time on my page the other day. I was like, how many of you know someone who's died from COVID? Oh, lots of people, hundreds of folks knew people, multiple people. Then I posed the second question: how many of you know people who died from an adverse reaction to a COVID vaccination? And that number dropped almost to nil. And so with that, you've got to ask yourself, we're almost a year into the first vaccinations, and most of us don't know people who died from it. Most of us have taken it. So by extension, that means it's safe. I don't understand what the Kyrie Irvings and Jonathan Isaacs and Andrew Wiggins is. I don't know what they're doing. They need to take the shot and go ball out. I'm not getting it at all.
Yeah, you know what, Kyrie? First of all, I'm looking at your eyelids.
Yeah, he's on one.
And maybe you thought that smoking was going to kill the COVID out your body.
Yeah.
Let me just say, Kyrie. Or maybe I should call you Irie. Here's the thing, bro. As Chuck said, when you were in kindergarten, you had a yellow card that showed your vaccines. This is not a new vaccine. This is a variation of a vaccine that's been in development for 20 years, because there was SARS-1. They were trying to develop a vaccine for SARS-1. This is SARS-2. So it's like the 2019 Mustang and then the 2020 Mustang. They had a Mustang already, and they added some leather trim, and they added CarPlay, and then they rolled it out with a new color. This is not some brand new things. And going ahead, people were talking trash about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, saying, if you don't get the vaccine, you should quit. And somebody in one of our frat pages, Chuck, I don't know if you saw it, they actually called Kareem Abdul-Jabbar a coon for advocating vaccinations from a team of professionals who are in close physical proximity to each other, maskless as is necessary.
Wow.
breathing on each other, spitting on each other, bumping into each other in a stadium full of fans.
Yeah.
Some of whom are maskless, at least while they're drinking beer or eating a hot dog or nachos or whatever. And I go back to that scene in Outbreak where they were in the movie theater and that one person coughed and the little germ said, and then somebody's laughing. and the germ goes into them. And then like the next day, the hospital's just overrun, people bleeding from their eyes and all that. It's like, it's just a shot. I've gotten it twice. Everybody in my household, me and the wife first, then my daughter, then my sons, all of us.
And I'm not gonna lie, Tom, my third shot I posted last week was
you got the booster.
Yeah, I got the booster. Now the booster put me on my butt. Like the first two had me kind of lethargic for 24 hours, maybe, you know, and then everything was back right. But man, I was worn out for about 3 or 4 days. But you know what? I'd rather be worn out for 3 or 4 days and safe
than laid out in a casket.
Laid out and for all eternity.
Eternity.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, yeah, ain't no question here. You got me?
No, I just don't, folks. People are dying every day. This is a real disease. And I don't know how many more of your favorite right-wing talk show hosts or podcasters are going to have to kick it before you realize that this is real. But proceed, Governor. That's all I had to say. Y'all do what you do. Do it in your home. Get DoorDash to deliver to the door, so they don't have to come into your little COVID mansion, and tip them people extra for your ignorance. And you got Instacart. You can get toilet paper. You can get anything you want delivered to your house. Just don't leave.
Yeah.
Stay at home and keep your kids at home and keep schoolaging them and doing K12 or whatever.com. Teach your kids at home if you don't want to get them. Live in your freedom bubble. Because I'll tell you right now, you cough on me, it's going down.
No doubt about it, man.
It's going down. Like it's going down like Squid Game, bro.
Yeah.
Squid Game.
Yeah, no question, man.
Inspector Royale. So just had to throw in. We got we had a little bit of pop culture popping off up in this thing. Let's talk about let's talk about Mr. Kelly.
Seems
so
like he's ready.
Yeah. To go all the way to community showers. I've made myself very clear. I am not a person who felt it necessary to continue to support R. Kelly once the initial revelations about the tape came out. Once the initial revelations came out, I was good. I was
20 years
done.
ago almost
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Even when the Aaliyah stuff came out.
Yeah.
And then I actually knew people who were on the plane with Aaliyah when it crashed.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And so that made it even more acute for me.
Yeah.
The loss of her talent, the loss of her light, the loss of her artistic ability and everything else. And all through this trial, as I've been listening, and the revelations about the boys, because that was new. What nobody expected that one to pop off.
That was a left turn. Yeah.
That was a left turn.
Yeah.
And so when I realized the depth of the depravity, I was like, okay, so R. Kelly doesn't realize how badly he's about to go down. It's going to be real bad when he goes down. And I was expecting all of it. And it's not even over for him.
Yeah.
But
they about to max his ass out.
Oh, he maxed it and max. You know, it's the Pied Piper of Cell Block D. Follow me. I mean, and I'm sure he will have some people who will have his back. He's still R. Kelly.
Yeah.
You know, he'll be doing Cell Block concerts and everything else. But
if he doesn't kill himself.
Good for you, jury.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you, jury.
Yeah.
I am 110%. What was your feeling about that, Chuck?
No, I'm not gonna lie to you. The concern that I have had from the get go is that America has an almost unholy fixation on celebrity. And the guy that we talked about at the top of the hour, Donald Trump, you said it best, Brother Cunningham, when you said that but for his reality TV show and the appearance, I was talking about the appearance of him being a billionaire or whatever. Those were the things that you know made so many of his faithful enamored with him back in 2016 when he first ran, when he wasn't nearly the best candidate out of the Republican presidential primary. I say that to say that the same holds true for Kelly. We talk a lot, particularly as Black people, about how mesmerized the trumpets are about Trump and his wealth. Well, we do the same thing. And I'm not saying we, all of us, but there are enough of us who are enamored with celebrity that we will give people passes that ordinarily we wouldn't give. So when Bill Cosby's convicted, it's, oh, well, I love the Cosby Show, and I love the Different World, and I love Fat Albert, and they didn't have to do this to Bill. They didn't do it to Hugh Hefner, and they didn't do it to Roman Polanski, and that none of that hits the mark, which is all of those individuals are creeps.
Right.
Period, point blank, end of story. And while it is unfortunate that Hefner went to his grave and maybe was never held to account for anything, not maybe, wasn't held to account for anything that would have been illegal, at the same point in time, that does not excuse what has gone on amongst Black people, particularly when you're looking at Kelly, because Kelly, in particular, his predatory predilections are against young Black people, young Black girls, young Black women, and as we learned during this trial, young
even
Black
some
men,
Black boys.
Okay, and so it harkens back to the whole I don't like Kamala Harris because she was a prosecutor and she's the police. Well, a lot of times prosecutors like Kamala Harris are defending Black people who are the victims of crime. And so in my point of view, Kelly, like you said, I was done with him 20 years ago when the tape came out, right? And that's frustrating because I've always loved the good slow jam tape. The brother's talented. There's no question about it. He's a musical genius. But at the end of the day, I didn't like his music or his talent that much.
Not that much.
Where when you know that he's doing these things to 12 and 13 and 14 and 15-year-old girls, it was a wrap for me. And so that's part one. Justice has come. I think, Tom, that he's going to get maxed out sentence-wise because he's dodged bullets in the past in the legal system. And these judges, the judge in New York, and then if he's convicted in the other trials, they're going to look at the body of work over 20 some odd years, which is not only did he dodge the bullet in prior trials, but he got worse as time.
Oh, absolutely.
Kidnapping these girls,
smearing feces on them and all that other stuff. And look, let me hop in real quick because there's a couple of comments that are made. Cecily said that one of her family members said, if you're still eating Subway after Jared, then I will listen to R. Kelly. First of all, Subway, Jared nary ever made a sandwich.
Right.
So let's be clear. Let's stop with the false equivalency. Jared was not a sandwich maker. He did not own Subway. He was a spokesperson that Subway hired after he lost a lot of weight from eating Subway sandwiches. R. Kelly was producing his music and raping girls.
Period.
Don't talk to me about sandwiches and rape.
Yeah.
Ain't no rape sandwiches. Stop it.
Thank you.
The other thing that we need to consider is that yes, when somebody asked, do we think he got away with as much as he got away with for so long because he was abusing Black girls? And now we understand Black boys as well. And I think that is part of it. I think even from the parental standpoint, we as a people have been so degraded and socialized in this country to have no sense of self-worth. That the idea that, well, at least she's with that man and he's got money, or maybe he can do something for her career and help out the family. people were making rationalizations, people around these young women, even the young women themselves, who some of them, apparently thought that this behavior, even though it felt slightly wrong, they persisted in it, partially because of the Svengali like hold that he had on them, partially because of the breadth of his talent and the universal acclaim that was lavished on him, and performing songs. Somebody said that their little cousin or something was singing "I Believe I Can Fly" in their little 5th grade thing, and had to the little niece had to make a presentation about the song and mentioned R. Kelly 3 times in her presentation after he had been convicted.
Jesus.
This is the idea of a celebrity, the cult of personality, and the lack of self-awareness and self-estimation is part and parcel of what allows these cycles of degradation to continue. I mean, I used to live in the suburbs of Chicago, and Cabrini Green and those homes. Speaking about Confection Man and Jordan Peele and Nia DaCosta, if you have not watched that movie, please go do it. It is well worth it. And it's also available, I believe, on demand right now, so you don't have to brave the theaters if you don't want to. But these are real issues in our communities.
Yeah,
real issues, and it's not so different from the attitude of some of the folks who administered the Tuskegee experiment with, well, it's scientifically important, and these men, they're doing this for science, so we don't have to take care of them because these black men, there's greater worth in chronicling how this disease ravages them than repairing them and inoculating and protecting them from the disease. It's been a vicious cycle in this country. I am just glad now he got away with it way too long. He is never going to get away with it again. And that is the blessing. And that is the message as far as R. Kelly is concerned. He can step in the way of soap, or
yeah.
I believe he can dry himself in the shower. Then that's what he's going to be doing. But it's a long time coming. I am glad for the victims of his heinous depravity, and I am glad that we will no longer have to litigate this. Somebody said, this happened because R. Kelly was trying to buy MSNBC.
See, there's always one. There's always going to be one. There's always going to be one, man.
That tickled me, I had to say.
No, it is funny. And Tom, I'm not going to lie to you. When we look on social media and you see some of the responses, like, man, I'm looking up and down at some of these responses, like on my page, your page, and some of our mutual groups and what have you. And I'm like, boy, I can spot the predators. Because again, as men, there's no equivocation here. Either you support women and you're against rape culture, or even support men because men get raped also, or you support the rapist. There's no.
That's it.
Yeah, there's no two ways.
It's binary.
Right. It's
a zero-sum game.
Period. And so, I'm sitting here looking at these dudes justifying this and that, and I'm like, okay, be careful. You not R. Kelly, and you don't have goons that are going to protect you. Some dad's going to put hot lead into you about fooling around with their little baby girl. And so, be warned.
There it is.
People,
there warned. It is. Gregory McFadden says, I saw D.L. Hughley said, we're still listening to the national anthem. Let's be clear. Francis Scott Key was dead. Ain't no iTunes streams, ain't no Spotify of the damn national anthem. It is fallen out of copyright protections. Okay. Nobody is doing anything about Francis Scott Key and that verse that nobody sings. And to the extent that I have even seen some historical analysis that what they were talking about in terms of slaves wasn't even necessarily the, black people slave, whatever. I don't buy that BS. I will just say this. Robert Kelly is alive and has been an icon in pop culture 20 years past the revelation that he was raping children.
Thank you.
Francis Scott Key been dead.
Yeah.
Name another Francis Scott Key song. I dare you.
Can't do it. Well,
but you still bumping "Step in the Name of Love" at a cookout. Stop it.
Right, and it ain't that great. The music is good, but it ain't
it's
that
fine.
Great.
Listen,
yeah, it ain't that. Great. Yeah,
you put "Step in the Name of Love" next to anything by Marvin Gaye.
Right, doesn't compare.
Okay. Doesn't compare. You put "Step in the Name of Love" next to Holland Dozier Holland. You put it you put it next to "Long Walk" by Jill Scott. Let's be clear. He had some bops, but when you listen to some of those songs, just like there's a meme going around right now about "Do Me Baby" and the verse that Busta Rhymes apparently wrote. Did not know that. Backstage, underage. It's like, wait.
I did not know that was Busta that wrote that.
Busta wrote that. Ronnie DeVoe delivered it.
Okay.
But Busta apparently wrote that. And that song is all about R. Kelly-ness. And I can remember, not that I wasn't a super duper fan of BBD anyway, but when that little piece came on, I was like, oh, this is not good.
Cool. Not cool.
At all. Right. Even back then.
Right.
So it's like, we can have some standards. We can love artists, but R. Kelly was saying the quiet part out loud for years.
Yeah.
Age ain't nothing but a number that he wrote for Aaliyah. Come on, man. And married her so she could have an abortion.
And shit.
All of this stuff came. Man, look.
And the Pied Piper. I mean, the fact.
Oh yeah. What did the Pied Piper do? He took your children away.
Yeah. I'm like, ooh, this dude was like telegraphing it,
And that was the cookout anthem. That and friggin' that Frankie Beverly and Mays song.
That I can't stand. People get mad at Hobbs when he says that he doesn't like Before I Let Go. And I'm not saying I don't like Frankie Beverly and Mays. I like a lot of their stuff, but that song works my last nerve. I when it comes to it, I'm like, here we go.
I have to say, I like Before I Let Go.
Okay.
But Frankie Beverly ain't never raped no children either, so it's easy to like that.
This is true.
And "Step in the Name of Love," that was your little wedding reception bop or whatever. Got it. I completely understand. Don't play it at a Tom Cunningham cookout. Just don't do it.
Absolutely.
So Cecily said, "Chuck, you're fired again."
I know. See, Brother Hicks is with me though. Brother Hicks say he can't stand it either. Yeah. All the way out the dance floor. All right, it's a wrap.
Yeah, I just think that when it comes to the things that we need to keep top of mind when we think about the things that are important to us, we are living in some crazy, dangerous times. We are living in times when there's so much at stake nationally and personally and mentally as Black people. October is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay. And
so my people, Chuck's people, our people, I entreat you. Thank you. Here, I'm going to put this up, Cassie Hammock. I'm just going to read what you say. We have to become lovers of ourselves. Then and only then will the Kellys of our race not get a pass. There are other Kellys waiting behind the screen. And my prayer for you is our people, love yourselves, do what you need to do in order to protect your mental well-being and your health. Seek out therapy if that's what you really feel you need. Even if you feel you don't need it. If you just stressed and you're looking for something different to do, go on ahead and seek some therapy. There is nothing wrong with it. You got Talkspace and all these other things, apps and things. You can text a daggone therapist and do video chat if you want to. But take care of yourself, and in taking care of yourself, take care of us all, because we cannot afford to fall for this sort of foolywang anymore. Totally. We just can't. We just can't. On a different note, we did have someone who a message from Joy. Joy said that she wanted to show this, and so we're going to share it in a way that Chuck and I can also be on screen and comment on it. But this is a brother who he must have really been up on that Loki that Loki series, because when I tell you he took on Alligator Loki and won.
Oh yeah.
Let's roll that beautiful beam footage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to be clear, first of all, he's got the ADT sign. I don't know if the ADT sign scared the alligator, but he got that big black container.
Yeah,
and the alligators back it right up into the bushes. He like,
that's an animal. He thinks
Okay, brother got a do-rag, white socks, and Adidas flip-flops. Come on now.
That's what's tripping me out. It's the flip-flop.
He got the flip-flop.
Yeah.
Boom!
At that point, and
he knew he had messed up.
Yeah.
He got, look at him.
He's heavy.
Oh! Okay, somebody said that Adidas needs to give that brother a contract now.
That's real talk.
That's the best advertisement for them flip-flops ever in life.
That is real talk.
Go get you some Adidas and fight off an alligator, bro.
See, that's what was tripping me out. When I first saw the video, I was like, bro did that in some, because I have my Adidas on right now, my flip-flops, and I'm like, they have decent grip, but Tom, I'm not gonna lie, if I had to go get in a scrap right now, I'd want my Nikes on.
Right, some laces.
Grip, right? Yeah.
Grip your foot.
Right. And I'm like, dude is out here in his slides and taking on a gator that will bite his ass. Do you get what
I'm saying? Couldn't even see whether or not the gator was in the bed. He was telling, is it in? Yeah. Tell me when the head's in.
Man, he was using the force. Like when Obi-Wan put the thing over Luke and was like, hey, your eyes can deceive you. Right. I was totally impressed with that the other day, man. I was
captivated.
Absolutely
captivated.
Because down here in Florida, that's not unusual. I post stuff like that all the time because I'm like, people think I'm joking, but I'm like, every single time I walk out the door, my head is on a swivel because you just don't know. It's because most of us live around water. And I tell people who visit the state, as you well know, Tom, you lived here for a good long while. If you see a body of water in Florida, there's a good chance there's a gator in there.
Oh, it's a gator in there.
In there, right?
Oh, no, it's a gator in there.
Yeah, no doubt. And so in my head, I'm like, and I know me and Brother Hicks were laughing about it on my page. I was like, yeah, that was a lot of work this brother did. I would have eased back into the house, selected the appropriate weapon, and eased back out, and I'd have shot alligator. Do you get where I'm coming from? But
listen,
who was able to keep him alive? I'm impressed.
Can you imagine? I know they had animal services, but can you imagine if he just put a rock on that thing and waited for the damn garbage bin?
Man, that was the best video I have seen in a long time. I was like, you're right. And whoever said that dude needs endorsement deals. He needs to blow up because that took a lot of courage. What he did.
Adidas and Old Bay. If you're listening, Adidas for the capture footage, and then he needs to boil some boiling water and some Old Bay, some potatoes, some corn, and some crabs in there, and get him a good old gator boil going on.
Good deal. I'm right there with you, man. Big up to that brother. Okay,
get them chunks. Get you some crusty bread. And do it because
Tom, again, last point for me is, if that gator had come around, flops on those Adidas, bro was in trouble. Do you get where I'm coming from?
He would have been stepping in the name of love with about 5 fewer toes.
I agree. Okay, or a big chunk of his leg and thigh.
Oh, bite marks. I mean,
it would have been
the
bad.
Grip strength on them things. That's nothing to mess with.
That's the man right there. He gets all the dap from me. That's the gangster of the month, if you ask me.
Gangster. We haven't done gangster of the week in forever.
Yeah.
You, sir. Do-rag Adidas slide socks, man. You, sir, are the gangster of you're the gangster of September, because that actually came in. That was end of September, even though we're showing it today. That occurred in September. So you are the gangster of all of September. You get all of that.
Absolutely.
And if you're a Libra, you get Libra gang vibes.
That's
so
it.
Speaking of that,
Happy birthday, brother.
It is my birthday next Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna probably do an after dark with some libationage and some things for next week. Sharpies, we love you. Thank you for keeping it crunk with us. We had excellent feedback. Thank you. Big shout outs to some of our super posters today. Cassie Hammock, Anthony Turner doing the damn thing today. Cecily Jackson for sure. Scholarly Talk on Life. I don't know who you are, but you're amazing. You had some really trenchant comments. Gregory McFadden, also Anthony DeMarco. Just a whole bunch of wonderful people who are engaging with us today. Hey, Carla's here again. So we love you, Sharpies. We absolutely love you. And we are still planning on doing an in-person show near the end of the month, God willing, because we know Ron DeSatan is not going to close down Florida. So we're not going to do anything inside. You know, we might do something on a porch and y'all can sit and shout questions at us and stuff. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to be doing it with you and hopefully doing it with you in person. Good luck to FAMU and Alabama this weekend as they face off. FAMU looking to gain a little bit more traction in the SWAC. Chuck, what do you feel as we close down? What do you feel about the SWAC this season and Prime and Alabama A&M, which is doing some great things, and sorry, Bethune-Cookman University.
Yeah, man. Tom, it's the best Black college conference by far.
Yeah, right now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right now, and I think it can only get stronger. The games are exciting. The contract with ESPN is outstanding because you get at least 2 or 3 games every week through the streaming services and what have you. The competition is tough. I mean, you know, Prime has Jackson State playing well. Alabama State's playing well right now. A&M, as you mentioned, Alabama A&M is doing an exceptional job.
Prairie View in the SWAC West.
Yeah, I saw Prairie View beat up on Pine Bluff last night.
Right. Oh,
what have you? Yeah, beat them pretty good. And Pine Bluff's a good team. So it's very exciting. It might even get better. I keep hearing whispers that Tennessee State may be able to leave the Ohio Valley Conference and come to what I've always felt would be its natural conference.
Sure.
And what have you. So, you know, it's exciting. And like you, I appreciate Brother Hicks, Sister Halliday, McFadden, Seaton, my Spelman classmate, and Vera Jordan, both of them. Hello to y'all. Debbie Pye. We thank y'all, Brother McWhite. Thank you all for being with us and sticking with us. And we'll be back as a group soon. Missed Joy and Sharon as always, but I know the grind is hard but fair. And we'll see y'all when y'all get back somewhere where y'all can holler at your boys and what have you. So definitely, Tom, you have a wonderful weekend.
You too, brother.
And we'll get up next weekend, man.
Peace out!
Yeah, you know what time it is. Crack open that bottle of wine. Grab your favorite glass, pour a couple of fingers of scotch in it. Get that stick, light it, and blow. It's time to hang with Steel Sharpens Steel after dark.